What's going on, everybody? My name's Alonso. Welcome back to the channel. Recently, I got ISA Riggers certified. Because I can talk about this for hours and hours and hours on end because we went over so much in this Riggers certification, I'm gonna boil it down to the 5 things that you need to know if you plan to ever get ISA certified. Now, before I hop into those 5 things, let's talk about what an ISA Riggers certification is and why you may want to get ISA Riggers certified in the first place. Essentially, the ISA course is a 3-day certification that tests and pushes you in order to ensure that you're a capable rigger. On top of being a capable rigger, this course is also going to assess your ability to efficiently work with others and be able to mitigate risks involved in any kind of highline scenario, whether that be a standard rig like the ones we have behind us here, or something more on the festival setting where there's a lot of lines and a lot of people who may or may not know 100% what they're doing. So it's really important to take a lot of these factors into consideration, but we'll save that for a video later in the future. Right now, let's talk about why you may want to get ISA Riggers certified, and then we're going to talk about what the top 5 things in order to get your ISA cert are. So in my very honest opinion, there are 2 main reasons why you may want to get ISA Riggers certified. The first one of those 2 reasons is safety. Now let's talk about it a little bit. Let's start with a fun statistic here. By my count, there are only 49 ISA certified riggers in the entire United States. Now take into account how many highliners there are residing within the USA, and think about only 49 of those being ISA certified. Also keep in mind that a lot of people are getting into the sport today. It's currently 2023, and the sport is growing at a really, really rapid pace. Imagine having somebody who barely knows what they're doing bringing people on that have no idea what they're doing. This inspires a culture of non-safety, non-efficient rigging, and could be a really, really dangerous thing. Our sport used to be very mentor-based, where one guy who really knew what he was doing took another person who really knew what they weren't doing, and they kind of taught them and slowly expanded the sport. However, now we're seeing a surge of people coming into the sport with just not enough mentors to teach all those people. So if we want to keep a community where safety is one of our top priorities, I think an ISA cert is a really, really good thing to have under your belt, because then you can bring others that are trying to get into the sport and don't know what they're doing and start them with priority number 1, which is safety. And now you may be thinking, oh, I'm already a good rigger. I don't need an ISA cert to tell me that I'm a good rigger so I can teach others how to rig. And while I completely 100% understand that, and you may not be wrong, I myself believed I was a 10 out of 10 rigger until I took this ISA rigging cert and realized that there was a lot that I still had to learn and didn't know much about. So if you think you're in that boat where you're already a good rigger and know exactly what you're doing, then great. However, I still highly recommend that you do the ISA cert, because there may be a thing or 2 that you have no idea that you don't know about yet. So go get your ISA certs and you'll thank me later. Now let's move on to reason number 2 why you may want to get ISA Riggers certified. And this is actually the reason why I decided to get certified in the first place. And that reason is access. Now, have you ever been kicked out of a park or highline area because a park or city official came and said, you guys need to take this down? And if you maybe asked why, they just didn't really have a reason for you other than, oh, we've never seen this before and this looks unsafe. Well, as we start to create a more reputable certification for rigging and start to spread that knowledge worldwide, we're gonna have something that we can show park and city officials that they've probably seen before. And now, this is gonna take a long time for this to happen, and it may not happen at all. It's a big maybe. However, it's definitely worth taking the chance, and that's reason number 2 why I think you should get ISA Riggers certified. Anyway, now that we have the whys and the whats, let's move on to the top 5 things you need to know in order to get your ISA Riggers certification. So the very first thing you need to know in order to pass your ISA Riggers certification is, well, how to rig highlines. And while I know this may sound obvious, I'm not talking about the cookie cutter techniques where you rig a line on 3 bolts or around a really giant tree of sorts, where those might be considered the easier ways to rig highlines. Just because you know how to do these 2 types of anchors, that doesn't necessarily make you a competent rigger. I'm talking about the hard stuff. For example, can you use something like climbing cams to make an anchor for highlining? How do the forces affect the cams? What about the oscillations? What happens if you need to wrap a span set around a really sharp rock or redirect it in a really weird way? What if you're rigging in a really chossy area? There's so much that goes into highlining, and I'm really talking about the harder stuff. So you really need to understand more or less the physics that goes on with the forces where you're rigging, what's appropriate to do, what's unsafe to do, what's more than ideal to do, all that kind of stuff. The best way to get knowledge in this is to simply go out with a crew that does a lot of natural hard rigging and just rig with them, you know, lend a hand, see what they need, and really soak up all the information right here. This isn't something you can simply learn on the internet by reading articles and watching videos from people that do this kind of stuff. It is a good starting point, but really, I recommend you find a crew that does this kind of stuff on the reg and just ask them if you can go rig with them. They'll probably be really stoked that you're willing to carry a heavy bag up a mountain for them and just lend a hand. So that's the very first thing. Now let's move on to the second thing you need to know in order to become a certified highline rigger. So the second thing you need to know are your knots and your gear. And this one's one of the easier ones, especially if you've been highlining for a while. There's a whole outline on the ISA course syllabus that tells you exactly what knots you need to know. So make sure A, you know how to tie them, and B, you know what they're used for, and also understand how all your gear works and how to properly use it, because obviously we're gonna be using it a lot, so you really, really need to have this stuff dialed down. Now, Highline Rescues. This was arguably the hardest part of the course because you have to be able to go out on a highline and rescue an unconscious highliner in a safe and efficient manner. Now, I'm not gonna delve too much into what this entails because there are a lot of videos out there. And while we're on the topic, I also wanna note that a highline rescue doesn't just take knowledge, it also takes a little bit of grit. So you have to be in pretty good shape to be able to roll out onto a highline that already has an unconscious person on it, get them up off their leash, and lead an entire rescue. So make sure, you know, you're staying fit, staying active, and that you're essentially ready for something that is gonna be really uncomfortable to do, because when it happens in real life, it's really, really scary. So even if you don't plan to get ISA Rigger certified, I highly recommend that you at least understand and know how to perform a highline rescue and even practice it in the park, because again, super, super, super important. Now, ascending and descending. This one is gonna be really easy for you if you come from a climbing background like I did. However, most highliners don't typically deal with rope, especially having to ascend and descend them, because most of us just kind of climb a little bit, maybe sport climb, and that's it. But when you give a highliner a pair of ascenders, they typically don't know what to do with them other than to pull taglines in with them. So this one's gonna be foreign to some of you guys, and that's okay. Again, I'm gonna be making videos on this in the future, and if you already know how to ascend and descend a rope, be careful, because they throw a little bit of a curveball at you, and they actually put a knot in the rope, and they make sure you're able to safely get past the knot both on the way up and on the way down, And on top of that, you have to do it in a timely and efficient manner. So that's point number 4, is ascending and descending past the knot in a rope. And the final thing you need to know is how to deal with hang frames and A-frames. And truthfully, I struggled a lot on this section of the certification. And the reason for that, and I'm literally just making excuses here, is because we have some nice, hard, solid granite here in California, and we rarely need to use things like A-frames and hang frames. However, if you come from a place like Utah, where sandstone is the main type of rock, you're using these things a lot. I barely scraped by on this section of the certification, but had I practiced and went to Home Depot and got some 2x4s, I think I would have done a lot better. And that's partially why I'm making this video, because you may think that you're an expert rigger, but they throw something at you that you just haven't practiced enough, and you may not scrape by like I did. So make sure you're practicing all these things, make sure you're really comfortable with them, and then you're gonna be just fine. And those are the 5 things you need to know in order to get ISA Rigger certified. If you're already ISA certified, leave a comment below and let me know anything I may have missed or anything that I should add to a video like this. If you haven't gotten your ISA cert yet, what are you waiting for? Click the links down below, go to the ISA website, and get yourself ISA certified, because it's gonna come in handy one day. And before you go and listen to me, just some random dude on the internet, make sure you go on the ISA's website and check out all their documents. They cover this thoroughly from start to finish, because I may have missed some small details in a small video like this one that we just went through here. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, love you guys, and I'll see y'all on the next video.